Hello, my name's Hazel and I'm going to be telling you how to plant up a patio container for summer. We're going to start by looking at aquagel crystals. These are crystals that soak up huge amounts of water and you add them to your compost and they help your compost to retain water through the summer. So you're not having to water quite so much, and on a really hot day, you're not going to be so worried about your patio container drying out, or even if you go away for the weekend. So they usually come with a little scoop, and this is how many crystals you need for 5 litres of compost, and that's what I've got in this container. This was one little scoop like that with 2 mugfuls of water, and over about space of half an hour just kept giving it a stir, and it soaks up all the water and it makes a massive amount. So it does expand quite a lot. What you don't want to do is to add the crystals to your compost and plant your plants in there and then water it, because then the compost and the crystals will then swell up and push your plants out and they won't fit into the container anymore. So I've made up my crystals first and now I'm going to mix them in. Or you could measure out how much compost you want by measuring your container and then mixing the crystals in and then watering that and letting that swell up before you plant. But this way, I like to do this because I can see how much I've made. So I'm going to tip that into my compost. Really important to remember that after you've used your crystals is to make sure that you seal up the packet really well, because what you don't want to happen is that the insides of your packet gets wet, because you can imagine with that many crystals inside, it'd be like the magic porridge pot where it just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. Mix them into your compost really well, all the way through, and then you're ready to go. So you do need to remember to get your aquagel crystals sorted out in good time before you start planting. So you may have to wait half an hour or so for them to swell up properly. There we go. Now I brought along my patio pot from home. So I had in here spring daffodils, some tulips and some bellis. Now they've all gone over now. The bellis I've actually been able to plant out into my garden, but the bulbs have all gone over, so I'm ready now to turn this into a summer patio container. I've got my crock to go over the hole in the bottom, and I'm going to about half fill my container with the compost. And then I've chosen here some pinks and purples. So if you watch our video on how to plant up a hanging basket, if you wanted to use a summer bedding for your patio pot for summer, I would suggest you watch that video and just use slightly more upright plants and fewer trailing plants. But I've actually chosen to use more perennials. So at the end of the summer, I can actually plant these out in my garden. I don't need to throw them away, and they will live on in my garden for the next few years. I've got a nice upright grass here, Stipa tenuissima, which gives a lovely wafty kind of feel in the breeze. One of my favourites. I've also got a pink Salvia nemorosa. I've got a lovely Kit Kat, which is just beginning to come into flower. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to squeeze in one of my favourites. I've got a Nemesia and then a little Campanula. And this will help just to soften the edge and give it a little bit of a softer feel. And that will be absolutely covered in flowers for a good couple of months. So I'm going to start with my taller plant and I'm going to put that at the back. Now, I know I'm going to be a little bit short of space. So I can actually squish this up a little bit, it won't mind. I've made sure that my plants have had a nice drink as well before I've started. I want to make sure all my plants can fit. So I've put that at the back, right up against the edge. And I've put it so that the compost, the level of the plant in the pot is going to be just about an inch or so below the level of the pot. Because when you water your pot, you don't want the water to be running off the top of the compost, you want it to be running in. Then I'm going to pop my salvia in there. And again, I'm just going to give that a very gentle little squeeze so that I know, I'm going to have to dig down a little bit for that one, so that I know I can fit everything in. And then my Nepeta. This one's called Kit Kat. It's got a really lovely blue colour. This one's got a little bit more roots on the bottom, but that should still be fine. It's got like a little bit of excess soil on there I can take off to help me fit everything in. Now, if you're planting all of these kind of perennials in the ground, you'd obviously want to give them a little bit more space. But as they're just going to be in this pot for the summer and then they'll be planted out later, you can squeeze them in a little bit tighter. Now this Nepeta will have a little bit of a drape as well. Nepeta are great for bushing out if you trim them back a little bit. And I'm going to squeeze in that lovely campanula at the front. Oh, it's getting very full. Am I going to fit my lovely Nepeta, my lovely Nemesia in as well? I think I will. I'm going to put that Nemesia in there. So once you're happy with your arrangement, then you just need to use a little bit more of your compost, fill in all the gaps, fill them in just gently. You don't want to squash your compost in. Don't forget, there'll always be a little bit of a space in the middle between the plants. You don't want that to be hollow. Give it a tap to help knock the compost down. Make sure you filled in all your spaces. And then the last thing you need to do is to give it a little water to water your plants in. Give it a good little soak. Settle your plants in, make sure you haven't created any more spaces, and there you have your lovely container. Now, another word just about the container is that obviously there are so many different containers you can choose. I favour the ceramic containers because I feel that they don't dry out quite so quickly. Terracotta pots do look wonderful, but in summer, because they wick water through the sides, they can dry out really quite quickly. What you could do is to line the inside of a terracotta container with some compost bag, for example. Open out a compost bag and cut a piece just to line. That will help to stop your terracotta containers drying out quite so quickly in summer. But then don't use that perhaps in the winter, because in the winter having the terracotta to wick the water away through the sides so that it doesn't become waterlogged can be quite a good idea depending on what you're growing in it. But these ceramic containers are great. They are a little bit more pricey, of course, than plastic containers, but they hold the water much better. Make sure you've got that drainage hole in the bottom there, of course. And I think they look great, and they come in so many different colours. Mine are all green. There you go, how to plant your summer container.